Well, hello there, sports fan. Welcome to this week's edition of Welding and Wisdom Wednesday. Well, kind of been a day or two since I got on here. I'm not one of these that just starts spitting out all this stuff that a lot of people do, and I got other things to do and just sit there and just study on that. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about, if you have an idea or something, keep it to yourself for most part. I mean, you can't just keep it to yourself. It won't do any good there. Be careful who you share it with. I'm not going to call any names or anything, but I was at one place, and a salesman, I was in the boiler business, and there was a salesman had gone, and they had a B&W boiler, and I think it was a combustion boiler, both there on that one site. And the guy kept talking about, well, they had a door kept burning out, a doors where you can open up and actually see in there, and or an access door, and said it kept burning out on them, and they couldn't do anything with it. So the B&W salesman told him, he said, I tell you what, I can make you a water cool insert to go in there. Of course, you know, he's selling something, and that's what he needed to be doing. So when we was out there in Little Rock, that's what we was going to do, but they was all concerned about, it's got to be this big by this big. It can't, and it's just tubes going up and down, up and down, up and down. Well, anything you know about tubes and stuff and bending them, they was all 180-degree tight bends and stuff. But anyway, I was sitting there and we was busy, and gonna have this big meeting on it, and a buddy of mine come by and said, dang, Rhea, said, you going to that meeting? I said, yeah, I'll be there in just a minute. Well, what you think, man? That thing's gonna be hard to build. I said, it ain't hard to build. I said, we'll build it, build our tubes, serpentine them, check all that, make sure all that right, and we weld all that stuff up. I said, the outer bars, I said, I can put them in a milling machine and make them dead square. I said, it ain't gonna matter. That's gonna cut off. I said, that's where you can adjust it and square it up. As long as we don't have, you know, more bars sticking out than the tube can cool off. I said, it'll be all good. And he said, well, I'm gonna go on in there. I said, all right. I wrapped up what little bit I was doing. We went in there and sat down. The engineer called, says, first question I got, does anybody have any idea how we're gonna build this thing and keep it that square? My partner said, yeah, all we gotta do is build this, that, and that, and then when we get done, we'll square up the outsides of it. And says, it's not gonna be that hard. Engineer said, guys, that's what I'm talking about right there. Y'all need to be thinking about stuff that we're doing and what we need to do and all of that. Well, all of a sudden, you know, and I did tell him, I said, dang, Hoss, that was a good idea. You know, what else you gonna do? You can't sit there and start an argument right there in a meeting that, you know, that was my idea and I just told you that and all of that, so you let it go. What difference does it make? We got the job, we got it done, wasn't nothing to it. A little while later, we was having problems with our package boilers coming in. We would come in, we had, from the time we got material to start on it, we had like less than a month to build them. And I mean, we was just jammed up from ship date. And I went to the head of marketing and I asked him, I said, look, cool, what takes so long to get the boilers to us on the floor to build? Well, you know, by the time that the customer decides what kind of burner he wants on there, whether he wants soot blowers or not, or what kind of gauges, I said, hold up. I said, a boiler is a boiler is a boiler, a package boiler. I said, if he wants a 10 at 88, which B&W, that was 10 foot center to center on the mud and steam drum and 88 rows deep. I said, if that's been confirmed to that, I said, you can release that. I said, to start off with, all our engineering needs to know is what kind of fuel they gonna run. If they gonna run natural gas, I said, you know what kind of burner you gotta do to put the BTUs on there for the amount of steam that they want. I said, you don't need a soot blower, whatever water column that they decide they want, but all of that can be hashed out while all of the other stuff is in the process and getting us started on them, and we can get them started a month earlier. And I said, you know, that's just the way that, you know, needs to work. Well, you don't have to wait till every last nitpicking detail is finalized before we start building the boiler. When it's confirmed that we're doing it, and whatever money passes hands or whatever, and it's locked in, parts need to be set up, and we need to get where we can start building that boiler and get out of this crunch time all the time and coming up late and stuff, you know, not really getting done as clean as it needed to be because you're in a hurry, and all of you know what that means. But anyway, I was talking to him about that, and I guess it's probably about a month later, we had this big meeting, called everybody, the whole planet shift change, got both shifts in there together. And he was sitting there telling about, he's got a revolutionized, streamlined our package boiler building. And the guy got up there and he said, well, fellas, it's like this. A boiler is a boiler is a boiler. I kiss your foot if I'm lying. Quoted me on that. He said, all this other stuff, we're going to go ahead and get started on it. These other details that they have to be worked out, we can be working them out in the 2 or 3 weeks that y'all are already started on it, instead of trying to get it all done and then crunching it all up. And everybody clapped and all of that. And boss man got up there, patted him on the back, how good a job he did, you know, and how forward thinking he was and all of that. Look, it don't matter. It got done. That's what I kept thinking. Okay, well, that's fine. It got done. The problem with that comes evaluation time. When they start looking at you, okay, what have you contributed about getting a raise and all of that? You know what I'm talking about, your performance appraisal. That's when all that there stuff matters. The two ideas that I had that were really praised throughout went to somebody else, and somebody else got raises off of my ideas. That's where it becomes personal right there. That's where things change right there. From being, well, it don't matter, it got done and we're making everything better. We are making everything better, but old Papa wants his pocketbook to be a little better too. You know, out of my ideas and what I was working on and stuff like that. But anyway, that last one, I'm not real sure who I could have told that would have made any difference. I went to head of marketing. He took it up and stole it for himself and decided that's what they was gonna do. The other one, that's my fault. I run my mouth when I shouldn't have been. I should have been sitting there and said, okay, we'll talk about it when we get in there in our meeting. And that's what we should have done there. At least I'd had one of them there that kind of helped me during performance appraisal. But anyway, I guess that's pretty much about it. I just want y'all to, like I said, you need to evaluate your ideas. Does it help? Who does it help? Who do you need to tell? Who do you have confidence in telling? Don't just go run telling everybody, because somebody else is going to run over and tell the boss man. There you go. I know some guys at the plant I used to work, they come up with this idea for a jig, you know, and it was going to make things a lot better to building these specific parts. And they went to the supervisor and everything and told him, well, you know, this is what we want to do. He said, yeah, it looks good, go ahead, you know, and they had an incentive deal. The money you got, I don't know, like 5 or 10% of what it saved in a year. You got that as a bonus for it. So him and another guy had all this stuff planned out and figured out, we need this jig, we need this, here's a materials list. Went to the supervisor. Supervisor said, look good, go ahead with it. He said, I'll let y'all work on it. So he let them work on it, build a jig and everything, got all the parts burnt and cut and everything, worked slick. A month later, There that old supervisor was in there getting a check and shaking hands, you know, about this idea, this jig he done come up with to save them all this time and money. Now then, what was they gonna do? Wasn't nothing they could do other than meet him in the parking lot or something, and take the check from him. But, you know, like I said, just be careful of your ideas, what you gonna do with them, who you gonna tell, and how you need to go about implementing it, because you need to do that for your benefit. Yes, it benefits the company, and that's what you're doing it for. But if there's gonna be any accolades like a little do-re-mi or a pat on the back, you need to be the one getting it. Somebody else don't need to be getting that from what you, because that ain't nothing but them stealing. So, you know, that's what they done. They done stole it from you, so. And ain't nothing you can do about it then, because you can't holler back later, well, that was mine, but because it ain't gonna carry any weight. But anyway, that's about gonna wrap up this session of Wednesday Welding and Wisdom Wednesday. Hey, if you want me to be the now, I want me to buy now, ziggity. We'll get it out in a minute. Y'all be careful, stay safe, go to church on Sunday. See you next time.